Stand by for broadcast.
You're listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations.
Hello, I'm Flight Lieutenant Peter Lisney, and in this episode, we reveal what life is like for an RAF musician. We'll also reheat a few stories, just in case you missed them. But first, see if you can identify this noise. Find out if you're right at the end of this episode. Now, Inside Air's theme tune was composed by RAF Music Services, so we thought it about time we found out what life is like for an RAF musician. In November, I met up with one of the RAF's newest musicians as he prepared to perform at the National Service of Remembrance in London.
But as soon as we go out there, it's serious. I find standing next to my colleagues really inspiring. Oh dear, we're giving the game away now. I'm SAC Alan Thomas, and I'm a trumpet player with the band of the Royal Air Force Regiment.
Alan, tell us exactly where we are right now and what you're waiting for.
All right, well, right now we're in the mess at Wellington Barracks, surrounded by various musicians. I can hear bagpipes warming up outside. I can hear people tucking into a quick fry up, and all preparing to march out to the cenotaph, ready for the National Service of Remembrance.
So Alan, this is quite an important day for you because tell me, how long have you been in the Royal Air Force?
Well, I haven't been in the Royal Air Force for a year yet, so I think I started my basic training in November, right at the end of November in 2020, and this is my first time of playing at the cenotaph with the Royal Air Force Music Services.
So, Alan, I'm going to try and be kind here, but you're not the youngest person in the room, are you?
There's a few grey hairs. Yeah, no, I'm 43 years of age, so I came into military music pretty late. So, I was. Let's call it a father figure when I was doing my basic training. I think they did call me Grandad occasionally.
So, coming into RAF Music Services, I guess you were 42 at the time. A lot later than other people. You've clearly had a career outside of the Air Force. Tell me about your career before coming into the Air Force.
Yep, I was a classical musician playing in orchestras. So the biggest concert I used to do with the BBC Symphony Orchestra was the famous last night of the proms from the Royal Albert Hall. And various other things, travelled the world, and that was my career. As well as that, I was playing on some fairly famous film soundtracks at Abbey Road Studios, and also sort of smaller chamber music as well.
And it's a bit of a change of pace, perhaps, coming into the Royal Air Force?
It's definitely a completely different challenge, but equally as fulfilling. And the reason I wanted to change is because I felt I had covered everything I wanted to do in classical music, and been really lucky to have got that done by early 40s. And I wanted to experience some of these major events, such as today, with the Royal Air Force Music.
Okay, you've got a bit of experience under your belt now, today, as you enter the events this morning. But tell me about the first ceremonial event that you were a part of.
Yeah, so fresh out of on-the-job training, RAF Northolt, the first engagement I was put down on the list for was the funeral of Prince Philip, which was quite an experience. Obviously a very sombre occasion, but a real privilege to be part of a huge tri-service band on what turned out to be really glorious weather at Windsor Castle.
That must have been quite nerve-wracking, the responsibility. How did you prepare for that?
Well, there's obviously lots of rehearsals, which was really good because it gives you that chance to hone your skills. My fellow musicians, there's a real amazing essence of teamwork amongst military musicians, and people really do look out for you and tell you what you need to do. But I think it's not just the music making, it's also the drill and making sure you're turning the right way at the right time. And that sounds a bit basic, but making sure you're doing all the right movements, keeping an eye on the drum major, keeping an eye on the director of music as well. So, but in the end, it went really well. So I was really pleased with that.
Okay, you do seem to get thrown the odd challenge in your career, and I believe you've been chucked another one today.
The challenge today is, the RAF have the privilege of sounding the rows or the reveille after the Marine Buglers have sounded the last post. So that's a real honour as a trumpet player. Throughout the year, we often get sent out to perform the last post at funerals from past serving personnel, and this is one of the biggies. So for this one, there's 10 of us who march out from the band at a certain point and line up right next to the cenotaph. And when it comes to our time, we'll be sounding the reveille.
I understand that you are using a particularly different instrument today.
Yes, that's right. When we're on the march, and we normally sound last post, we play on a cornet, which you see, which has the music clipped to it on a lyre. Once a year, we use the RAF cavalry trumpets, which are specially made, and this is the only time of the year they ever come out of the store cupboard. They're really nice and shiny because they're not used that much, and so they're actually, unlike a bugle, a bugle's sort of a conical bore, was more like a cornet, whereas these trumpets are a cylindrical bore, so the pipe stays the same right to the very end. So it's a slightly different sound to a bugle, and if you hear the Marines sound amazing on their bugles, but it's maybe more of a mellow tone, and the trumpets we play on a slightly brighter sound. So it's a real honour to play them.
So slightly different trumpet today. What are the risks of using an instrument that you rarely use?
We make the sound the same way with our lips. We make a little sort of sound, so that's very similar. We're actually carrying two instruments. So the cavalry trumpet is slung around our shoulder and dangles down by our side for the march up Birdcage Walk and over to the cenotaph. There's a slight risk factor that you've got to make sure your mouthpiece is in really tightly, because otherwise you could lose it on the march up, which I believe has happened once before, but I won't mention any names. The other thing is that instrument gets colder and colder as you're marching up playing your cornet, so you really have to I think we only get about 6 or 7 seconds to blow some warm air through it before we actually play the reveille. So it's been sort of dangling by our side for nearly an hour by then. So.
What happens when you play a cold trumpet?
It's interesting. Well, condensation happens, so the thing you've got to be careful of is too much water getting in there. The condensation turns to liquid, and it can sound a bit bubbly if you're not careful, so that's why we blow some air through it beforehand. And also the other thing is it makes the pitch goes down. It makes it a bit flatter, so we have to tune a little bit sharper to make the bright sound that we want to achieve when we sound the reveille.
So the Royal Air Force and the Armed Forces are very much about managing risk, and from your perspective here, the risk is about reputation. Whose reputation?
Well, I think with 10 of us, it's a sort of combined reputation, and and it's an honour that we get to do this. We obviously rehearse a lot. We rehearse in every scenario just to make sure everything happens. We also practice the drill. You can just hear the bagpipes going on at the moment, but we practice the drill as well, which is tricky because we also have to march out in completely different time to the music that the guards are playing. So we practice that as well, and it will all go absolutely fine, but we don't leave anything to chance.
So what will your nerves be doing as you'll have stood there for quite some time before you're called forward for your moment? What will your nerves be doing?
Nerves are a good thing because they show that you care. I think over a long career you end up finding out how to deal with them, but it's turning them into a positive. I mean, what I try and do is think of what some of the veterans have been through and why they're at the cenotaph, and really is what a privilege it is to represent them, and how meaningful what we're playing is to all the past service men and women who were there with their poppies, and at this great act of remembrance.
It certainly is going to be a moving occasion, and I'm sure that a few tears will be shed this morning, as they always are. Thinking about your preparation and how you prepare for such an important, where the nation's eyes are looking at you on television. There's hundreds of thousands of people lining the streets and watching you perform. What can people from other professions and other branches and trades within the Royal Air Force learn from how you and your colleague musicians deal with these big events?
Right, yeah. I think, one thing is I find standing next to my colleagues really inspiring, and I think we look after each other in every possible way. And I know that I've rehearsed with them, and you know that your colleagues are supporting you. They don't want you to mess up. No one wants you to make a mistake, but everyone does it in the best possible way. And it's amazing how, when people want you to do something different, how they'll say it in quite a constructive way, and I think that really helps. And I've certainly found that in this, my first year, is how helpful everyone's been. And when I've not been doing something quite right, is that they've just kept it in a way that hasn't made me sort of freeze, if you like, So I think that's been something I found really useful. And also, preparation is key.
So there's a good balance between banter and support then?
Yeah, well, banter's always a difficult word, but I think, as you'll see, I mean, obviously today is a very sombre occasion, but I think humour, and I think when we're rehearsing is important. But as soon as we go out there, it's serious, and so I think it's a fine balance.
So you talked about preparation. Could you tell us how many seconds you will be playing for this morning, and then put that in the context of how many hours of preparation and rehearsals you've conducted? Well,
I think the Reveille lasts about 20 seconds. I mean, the thing is, there's no chance to redeem yourself on something like that. We're playing the trumpets we play don't have any valves, so there's only actually 5 notes we need to play on the instrument. Some of them more than once, but I think that's the hardest thing. It's just so short. I mean, we are playing more than that. We're playing 4 marches on the way up, and we're playing as the veterans march past the cenotaph, and then 4 more marches on the way back. So there is plenty to do, but this is the big moment in the spotlight.
And how long has the band been rehearsing as a group?
For this occasion, it's been over the course of this week. RAF Music Services is really busy because there's also been a band playing at the Royal Albert Hall for the Festival of Remembrance, and also then there's other preparation for other things in the next few weeks. So we're kept on our toes. Now,
I've noticed something here today in the canteen where all the RAF musicians, they're not wearing their tunics because they're having their breakfast. Now, everyone in the Air Force, we tend to wear shirts. Can you tell us what RAF musicians wear under their tunics?
Oh dear, we're giving the game away now. I think it's probably what you wear under your tunics is your only chance to have a bit of self-expression. So there's a variety of rock concert T-shirts, football shirts, all sorts of things. I think the main thing also is you want something comfortable under there, because under a greatcoat and a tunic it can get pretty warm, So yeah, but I think it's quite nice. It shows a bit of the different personalities.
You have to tell us what are you wearing under your tunic?
I've got, I think, a 10-year-old Southampton Football Club shirt. So, yeah, obviously I've had a few over the years, but I quite like this one. It's quite comfortable. So, yeah, and it just makes me feel a little bit more at home.
It's quite a relaxed atmosphere in here as your colleagues are preparing, they're chatting, they're drinking cups of tea, they've just finished their cooked breakfast. What is going through their minds at the moment? We're, about 20 minutes away from moving off? What's going through the minds?
I think most people will be. I mean, a lot of people here have done it loads of times before, so they know exactly what's involved. I'm still thinking about the different jaw movements and what I've got to do at certain times, but also I think it's really, really key to stay relaxed. You can't stay on edge the whole time. You have to actually switch off. So I think having a bit of a natter and a cup of tea is a good way to prepare. But you can bet your bottom dollar that as soon as we step out onto the parade square, that everyone will be focused and switched on.
So what do you find is the most challenging, hardest, or the thing that you don't like about being an RAF musician?
Oh, I like all of it. I think the teamwork is amazing. I mean, the whole band runs itself. Everyone's got several jobs, whether it be from loading the lorry to putting the music out to laminating the music to, right up to making sure that the coaches are sorted for us to arrive. So I love that thing that we're totally self-sufficient. There's nothing I don't like, really. I mean, some things are trickier than others. Standing for long periods of time gives you time to reflect, I think. But yeah, and I think the hardest thing is when you've been stood there for so long is then just simply going from, coming to shun can feel a bit creaky. But yeah, it's all really enjoyable, and it's all a great job, if I'm honest.
That is really good to hear, because we don't want. It's a really, really positive to know that you love your job, and I hope that continues for the full career that you hope to have.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to some people leaving in the next year and after 22 years service. I haven't spoken to anyone here who doesn't enjoy it and isn't totally thrilled by these big occasions. So I think that speaks for itself.
So. Normally when someone has a job during the day, they do their work and they go home, and the last thing they want to do is do more work. When you go home in the evening, do you play your trumpet at home, or are you a rock guitarist, or what role does music play outside of work?
I think it varies. I mean, we have to be professional, and a lot of our work also gets done at home. If we've got things to practice for next week, we've got concerts coming up, but then we will play. But it also to relax. I'll listen to different music, to podcasts, go for a run, things like that. So yeah, I think it's a fine balance between honing your skills and also switching off. But I think we all love music, so. It is a sort of vocation as much as a career as well.
Well, speaking of career, there may be people listening to this right now that are either at school, very much into music and aspire to be a military musician, or like you, they're playing for a symphony orchestra, mature and thinking of a career change. What advice would you have for someone who aspires to that military musicianship?
Well, I would say practice would be the main thing, is get as good as you can with your instrument, because you do have to audition and it can be competitive. I would say keep fit, keep in shape, and I would say get in touch. That'd be the other thing, is chat to people. People in the band service are very happy to talk and tell you warts and all how it is, because it's more than just playing your instrument. It's being on parade. It's being part of the Royal Air Force as well. And we're often the people who represent the Royal Air Force right on these big ceremonial occasions. So get in touch and talk to us.
Well, I know you have a very active social media presence. Tell us about that. How can people find RAF Music Services?
Oh, I think it doesn't take much these days, does it? I think just that put it into a well-known search engine, and you'll come up with a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, lots of really interesting videos, and you'll see what we're up to day to day. So and it's good to see the individuals as well as the combined band, to see the variety of skills there are. There's some fantastic jazz musicians and rock musicians, and all within the band who do that as well as playing out on parade. So it's a real diverse mix.
Alan, what are your aspirations for the future? You're 1 year in, and you've done so much already. What is there left to do?
Oh, I want to carry on and then embrace it. It was a real shame this summer. Edinburgh 2 was cancelled, so we didn't get to play at that. And I think there's just so much more to do, and every occasion is different. Whether it be playing a fanfare at a big event, or one of my colleagues played Last Post at Wembley for the England match just two nights ago. So there's always these different things that will come along. It's the variety of events we do is so huge that I don't think you're ever going to get bored. So I'm looking forward to seeing where my career goes from here. But every time I get a bit of a thrill every time I put the uniform on. So yeah, that's me for hopefully a long time to come.
Well, that sounds great. We wish you the best of luck. But it seems that your colleagues are donning their tunics over their football shirts. That's a state secret I've let out there, isn't it? Oh,
I think it is. Yeah. You might notice I'm starting to get twitchy now because I can see everyone getting ready, and I'm not the quickest at getting changed. So it's time to start tensing up, as they say.
Right, we're going to let you go, and I hope we'll get to speak to you after, and you can tell us how it went.
Yeah, well, it's not. I would say fingers crossed, but no, we're all focused. It's all going to be good. But I'll let you know. Yeah, maybe in a couple of hours.
We'll speak to you soon.
Okay, see you, bye.
So, Alan, we are just lined up in the depths of Wellington Barracks, waiting to go. How's your prep going?
Oh yeah, we're all good. Yeah, we're just having a chat. Just had a quick tune-up to make sure we're all okay. We're right underneath Wellington Barracks now, which is a bit like being under a multi-storey car park. So it's a little bit different to when we go out the front. So, but yeah, we're all ready to go, and just final bits of warming up. So.
Now, you have both instruments with you at the moment. Can you demonstrate the difference in tone?
Oh, I'll try to. Okay, so this is the cornet. And this is the cavalry trumpet. So, yeah, it's a slightly different tone, but yeah, and with the different mouthpiece as well. But yeah, it's all going quiet now, so I better go.
I'm Flight Lieutenant Tom Rodder, and I was the Director of Music for today's parade.
So can you tell me, Tom, why is music so important to the armed forces?
So I think on occasions such as the Remembrance Sunday Parade of the Cenotaph, music brings a certain sense of poise, a certain sense of reflection to an occasion such as this.
So there's still a place for music going forward?
Absolutely. I think you'll see on days like today, when emotions do run very high, that music really brings emotions to the fore and allows us to reflect on those people who we're remembering today, and of course reflect on those people who are also currently away.
And of course today you've been playing alongside the Band of the Royal Marines and I believe it was a Guards band as well. Could you tell me the difference between the Royal Air Force bands and our sister services? For instance, the way that they're recruited, and I believe you don't like to be called bandies.
That's correct. So if you were to join the Army, the Royal Corps of Army Music, as a bandsman, you'd be a bandsman, whereas in the Royal Air Force we recruit people as musicians. That's the name of our trade group 21. In terms of how we recruit, our training process is very, very short, so people will complete their phase 1 training at Halton, and then they join us and they are straight into the bands on day 1, and we have about a month or so of on-the-job training. To join the Royal Marines, you would enrol, you take part in your phase 1 training, and then you would complete 2 years worth of training, and it's a similar amount for the Army. There's a school of music that's shared between the Royal Marines and the Army, but we don't take part in that because we're recruiting at a higher level. About 86-87% of our recruits are from a university background.
In terms of music grade, what sort of grade would someone need to be before they could even be considered?
So our minimum standard of entry is grade 8, but we take most of our recruits at a higher level than that because audition is competitive.
And finally, Tom, if the days of the bugler and the drummer on the battlefield are gone, what is your role today in terms of operational or a war role?
We've had personnel deployed on several different operations over the last 18 months. Over 100 personnel were deployed on Op Rescript to support community town testing, whole town testing, and of course the vaccination programme. Our personnel were mainly deployed to Wales. In addition to that, we've had personnel deployed on the Baltic Air Policing missions and guarding UK assets overseas in the Middle East.
Tom, tell us about Alan and how he's getting on.
Alan's doing a wonderful job. So his background is coming from the civilian music industry, and he settled in very fast and is a wonderful asset to Royal Air Force Music.
I'm now with Warrant Officer Tony Scannell, who has been on parade as well today. Tell us what you've been doing out there.
Well, I'm the bandmaster for Central Band, and today I have been conducting the bugles out front. It's been quite exciting. You're right at the front, you can see everything that's going on, you're right at the forefront of everything, so it's been really, really exciting. Today is my final one. I've done 38 years in the Royal Air Force, and this is my final cenotaph, and it's a fantastic one to go out on.
So, with your job conducting the trumpeters, one of those being SAC Alan Thomas, how did he get on?
He did okay. It's the first one for him, but you'd have to ask him how he thinks it's gone. From my perspective, they all played really, really well. They're a fantastic bunch of players, and they performed really, really well, and everybody can see on TV.
So in your long career, you've clearly helped a lot of musicians come over from civilian bands and orchestras. How do you go about that? How do you bring in and put the military into our personnel?
Wow, what an enormous question. That's really, really quite interesting. But we recruit already pretty much qualified personnel, so minimum standard grade 8. But most of the people that come in now to music services are graduates, and 90% are graduates, and 50% of those are master graduates as well. So very, very educated workforce. So we've got a very talented group of individuals coming in. So how do we do it? Well, we put things in place for them, but fundamentally they come in pretty much qualified, and most of them come from civilian orchestras or straight from college or whatever, but they've had civilian experience as musicians. That talent that comes in is pretty special And as an old timer like me, you know, who came in at 18 and learnt my trade kind of thing, these guys already come in, you know, at the top of their game, and then we just nurture that, and then challenging them has been really, really quite an important part of our strategy moving forward. And within the trade, we can do that now, and there are opportunities for our personnel to get through the system relatively quickly.
And of course, they come in as musicians, but then you throw additional challenges to them. In your career, what are your out-of-trade roles that you've conducted? Have you deployed operationally?
Me personally, yes. I was deployed to Gulf 1. So I went out. I was out in Riyadh for the duration throughout Op Granby and Desert Storm. We were supporting 4626 Royal Auxiliary Air Force Squadron out there and doing a lot of the medical stuff. In Riyadh, we supported the main hospital in Riyadh. That was they converted the airport terminal, and we supported the transfer of patients to and from the PAN. I've done other operational ones. The one for me was I did the fireman strike in 2002, and that was phenomenal. I was a crew commander on a Green Goddess, and then subsequently a Red Goddess. So as a musician, do you know what I mean? Deploying in that kind of role was very, very different, and one that I'll cherish. We're such a versatile group, and I think that's the beauty of music services, is that whatever it puts its hand to, we adapt very, very quickly, because we're very, very educated workforce.
I've got to ask you, do you pack a piccolo or any instrument when you deploy?
Me personally, no. I'm a euphonium player, so packing one of them is pretty impossible. But when the guys were in Wales, a lot of them took their instruments with them to keep themselves in their downtime, up to speed with their performance levels, because it does have a major impact on their, people's playing. You don't play, you get skill fade, And when the guys were deployed for 4 months in Wales, people think, oh yeah, it's easy to take your instrument, but if you're a tuba player, you can't always do that.
Well, Mr. Scannell, thank you for appearing on Inside Air. And the future, you're retiring then? And are you still going to be playing your instrument as you go into retirement?
I'd like to think that I've finished playing now. I've retired from playing, but I'll keep it up and keep playing as much as I can, doing a bit of conducting as well. But fundamentally, I'm looking forward to the next chapter of my life and my career.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much indeed.
Alan, we've just arrived back at Wellington Barracks. How did it go today?
Oh, it was fantastic. I'm still buzzing, to be honest. What an experience, and especially seeing all the veterans marching past afterwards. Well, it brought a tear to the eye. But I think we did our bit really well. We're really pleased with it. The warrant officer was happy, so if he's happy, we're definitely happy. So, big smiles all round.
Alan, thank you for coming on to Inside Air today and telling us about your story and your passion for music. And we really look forward to seeing you parading in the future.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too, and it's been a pleasure to be part of this podcast.
This is Reheat on Inside Air. I'm SAC Victoria Andrews. A RAF Typhoon has shot down a small hostile drone in Syria, which posed a threat to coalition forces in the area. This unprecedented event was the first operational air-to-air engagement conducted by an RAF Typhoon, and also the first RAF air-to-air missile firing during Operation Shader. Op Shader is the UK's contribution to the global coalition against Daesh. Not all of us would experience a white Christmas, but those undertaking cold weather training in northern Norway are seeing plenty of snow. Based out of NATO's most northern base at Bardufoss, Exercise Clockwork will allow all 3 services to practice warfighting skills in the extreme conditions of darkness and temperatures of -30 degrees Celsius. A Globemaster C-17 has moved Apache helicopters into the base, which is a first for the exercise. An Atlas A400M, C-130 Hercules and Voyager are also taking part. In another first, the RAF's photographic profession welcomed photographers and media officers from the Irish Air Corps Defence Press and the United States Air Combat Camera Team to take part in Exercise Allied Lens at RAF Bryce Norton. The skills-sharing exercise provided new and unique challenges as the photographers contended with the downwash from the Chinook and the size and scale of the C-17 Globemaster. And finally, RAF musician SAC Shona Brownlee has been awarded the RAF Sportswoman of the Year. Competing in sit skiing, she will take to the slopes as part of the Great Britain Para-Alpine team for the Beijing Olympics in February, while 2019 World Champion Jiu-Jitsu competitor Flight Lieutenant John Mafflin has been awarded RAF Sportsman of the Year. He's pursuing elite athlete status in martial arts and hopes to develop the Interstation League and the Inter-Services Championships in the sport. That's Reheat on InsideAIR.
I'm SAC Simon Ross with this episode's Name That Noise. That was the nostalgic sound of an 8-squadron E3D Sentry landing at RAF Waddington. Retiring in 2021, the E3D Sentry entered RAF service in March 1991 as part of the RAF's intelligence, surveillance, targeting and reconnaissance fleet. Since then, the Sentry aircraft have been involved in UK operations, including Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, the broader Middle East and the Caribbean, together with a NATO role. The Sentry is also known as the Airborne Warning and Control System, or AWACS. The aircraft returned to RAF Waddington in Lincolnshire on the 4th of August 2021, after flying its final operational sortie over Iraq. Its successor, a fleet of 3 Boeing E-7 Wedgetails, will be introduced in 2023 and will operate from RAF Lossiemouth in Scotland.
That's all for this episode of Inside Air. Please give us a review and subscribe on your favourite podcast app, and join us again soon.
You've been listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations. If you're serving in the RAF and have a story for us, please speak to your unit media and communications officer. Inside Air is written and produced for the Royal Air Force by RAF Media Reserves.